Good morning, friends, and thank you, Dr. Praveen. This is a very important topic pertaining to cataract surgery, and Dr. Praveen has covered the ocular surface very well. I'll be talking more about the cornea, and many times we have a very uneventful case, but however, post-operatively, we have a big surprise, and then we do have to wonder what went wrong. So we'll divide it into endothelial disorders, conditions with the stromal pathology, and surface irregularity. Endothelial disorders are the most important priority here, and we often fail to carefully look at the other eye to look for presence of gut data by doing a specular reflection or by doing a retroillumination with a dilated examination. You can pick up early gut data, and even if you don't have a specular microscope, you can ensure that you take the adequate precautions during surgery. Having a specular microscope is an invaluable tool, and you definitely look at two things. One is the polymagatism, that's the variation in the cell size. Here you have the standard deviation divided by the average cell size. If it is more than 40, then it is a marker. Look for pleomorphism, that is a variability in the cell shape and the percentage of hexagonal cells. If it is less than 60%, then again, you have to be very careful, even in routine cases, while handling them intraoperatively. So you assess the central corneal thickness, assess the specular microscopy, assess the visual compromise in these patients with Fuchs endothelial dystrophies. How much of the cornea is actually contributing to the defective vision? Is the patient complaining of fluctuating vision with blurry vision in the morning? Intraoperative considerations, including the use of dispersive viscoelastics and soft shell technique, have been well elaborated, and counseling the patient on the possibility of a postoperative delayed recovery or sometimes even an endothelial decompensation. A rough guideline is a CCT of more than 640. However, it's not a definite guideline for a triple procedure. Pseudoexfoliation and PXF endotheliopathy often goes under-recognized. We are very well aware of the complications we'll face during surgery. We have a CTR ready. We're looking at glaucoma, but we fail to look at the endothelium. And it is well reported even with PXF endotheliopathy that anything with the endothelial cell density less than 2000 has a higher chance of decompensation with or without glaucoma. So in these patients in a study, almost 20 to 25% of patients had a low endothelial count. And you have to be careful while handling these cases, not only due to the complexity of the cataract, but also because the endothelium is more likely to be weaker. In hard brown cataract, sometimes you got to really decide, and this is a common mistake we make during our beginning phases of phaco. If you have a long list, just rush through a hard brown cataract and press the foot pedal as hard as you can end up with a really bad cornea. And sometimes doing a good SICS and letting down your hard brown ego is more important. Even a good SICS will give a very good result. In late stages of postoperative corneal edema, there's an interesting article, and I think we have to keep this in mind for looking for any nuclear fragments in the anterior chamber. And there are case reports 3 months, 6 months, even 1 year after surgery, which are residual nuclear fragment left in the inferior angle, causing corneal edema inferiorly and endothelial decompensation. If it's a nuclear fragment, go in again, aspirate and remove the fragment rather than leaving it behind. And chronic inflammation is also causing cystoid macular edema. In stromal pathology, what we're looking at is, in some cases where you have an innocuous looking stromal opacity, look carefully at the previous history of trauma, where the presence of deep vessels, look for the corneal sensations. And in these cases, if you're suspecting herpetic or other viral keratitis, make sure that you have an adequate antiviral cover. Rather than to pay the price after surgery, make sure that you start with oral antibiotics at least a couple of days or a week prior to surgery. And if required, even cover with a topical antiviral agent throughout the post-operatively for at least 1 month. The third and most important thing, we look at surface irregularity, and sometimes even after a careful evaluation, we've taken up the case for surgery. But in post-operatively, we look at presence of irregularity on the surface. And if we have a corneal topographer, it's always an advantage. However, sometimes we may just do a keratometry, or we may get an IOL master, we may get good readings, but the surface is more irregular than you think. And this can occur with a limbal pterygium, which is encroaching into the optical axis. And this affects the wavefront of the eye as well. Even in cases with EBMD, if you look and carefully see on the surface presence of these map, dot, and fingerprint irregularities on the surface, you're more likely to have a very irregular surface on topography, and these cases should be dissuaded from going for multifocal IOLs. Or you can first go for a PTK or a surface ablation, regularize the surface, and then consider for the premium intraocular lens at a later stage. Keratoconus and subtle ectasias may be missed without a topography, and not in this case of having an advanced keratoconus, but a subtle form thrust keratoconus can be missed, and we have to be very sure of the patient's vision, best corrected vision not improving to 6/6, cylindrical correction, scissoring reflex on keratometry, and other red flags to look for early ectasias. Similarly, with pellucid marginal degeneration, generally you get a high amount of against the rule astigmatism, and these cases will go for a toric intraocular lens. But however, premium multifocals and other lenses could be avoided due to the irregular surface. On topography, you get a classical crab claw appearance, and these cases you have to be careful while handling postoperatively. Again, sometimes a very small nodule in the periphery, in this case, a Salzmann's nodular degeneration with a heaped up epithelium and a thickened basement membrane. These cases, we may get a good central keratometry and go ahead with the surgery. But post-operatively, if you really look at the corneal surface, it does induce a surface irregularity due to the flattening of the cornea in that region. There's steepening adjacent to it. And if you see the topography here, the entire surface looks very irregular. So in these cases, it's better to go for a monofocal intraocular lens and avoid going in for premium lenses where you're likely to have a problem. Respect the corneal endothelium and play safe during surgery. Thank you, Dr.